Open world games have been a staple to the PlayStation 4's library, and as we're heading into 2020, what does look to be the last full year of the PlayStation 4 before the release of the PlayStation 5, I want to highlight the top 10 upcoming PS4 open world games in 2020. Now, this is based off on the games that have been officially announced, so bear that in mind. There are going to be more games that get announced, and we're only looking at 10. Ultimately, I imagine that there are going to be a lot more open world games than the 10 that we go over in this video, and we'll make sure to do updated lists and whatever the case may be, so stay tuned for that. But without further ado, let's get right into it, and let's kick it off with what is arguably the most, or one of the most at the very least, anticipated games of 2020, and that is Cyberpunk 2077. Yes, after all the memes of Cyberpunk not coming out until the year 2077, no, 2020 is when Cyberpunk 2077 will drop, and there's a reason why so many people are excited. It's not like Cyberpunk 2077 is a continuation of an already established IP. No, people are excited because this is CD Projekt Red first and foremost. It could be any other studio in the world, and the expectations and the hype level for Cyberpunk 2077 would drastically go down. However, because it's CDPR, people are just naturally expecting something of immense quality, and rightfully so. Look at what they delivered with The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and Cyberpunk 2077 is looking to raise the bar for what CDPR can do. Now, the game doesn't look to be an open world that is going to be colossally bigger than The Witcher 3. However, what Cyberpunk 2077 really has going for it is that it's going to be an incredibly dense open world. That means this is going to be an alive open world. There's going to be a lot of things going on, and it's not just going to be spacious for the sake of being spacious. Everywhere you go in the game's fictitious world of Night City is going to be alive, and there's going to be something going on. And obviously, outside of the open world, there is some incredible depth into the game as well, from the dialogue options, the customization options, the gameplay. All of those elements are coming together to make Cyberpunk 2077 one of the most compelling game releases of 2020, and it'll finally be out come April 16th. Next up, another hotly anticipated game, and this one being a PlayStation 4 exclusive. It just had its release window confirmed, and that is Sucker Punch Productions' Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is a brand new IP from Sucker Punch, a studio some of you guys might be familiar with. They've worked on some excellent games, including Sly Cooper and the open world game franchise in Infamous. Infamous 1 and 2 were tremendous games, and of course, early this generation, one of the marquee PlayStation 4 launch titles just a few months after it dropped was Infamous Second Son. Now we have a grandiose open world title in Ghost of Tsushima, featuring a vast open world for the player to explore. The game revolves around the last samurai on Tsushima Island during the first Mongol invasion of Japan in the 1270s. It's played from a third-person perspective, and it features a large open world without any waypoints and can be explored without guidance. You can obviously traverse a little bit quicker if you go on horseback, and the gameplay looks really great as well. I want more games in this setting, and give it up to Sucker Punch for trying games of so many different ideas and settings. I mean, we had a Sly Cooper, then we had Infamous, something starkly different, and now we have Ghost of Tsushima. Again, they're taking another leap towards trying something completely new, and at this point, what we've seen has looked incredible. As far as open world games, this could set a brand new bar from how big open world games are to how they're designed and everything like that, and it's really gonna be the swan song as far as big PlayStation 4 exclusives. I thought The Last of Us Part 2 was gonna be that title, but no, Ghost of Tsushima is due out in summer of 2020. Next up, we have a game that I am cautiously optimistic about, but I am also a little bit skeptical, and that is Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Now, this will be out very, very soon, January 17th, and we've seen a plethora of Dragon Ball Z games. Usually, they are fighting games like a Dragon Ball FighterZ. They'll try to introduce some other elements with some of the other games like a Dragon Ball Xenoverse, and then we did have a Game Boy Advance RPG in a game like Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku, but Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is really trying to make a big budget RPG in the world of Dragon Ball. It's an open world action RPG, and it's being done by CyberConnect 2. Now, that makes me very optimistic because CyberConnect 2 is working on the game, and they've worked on some fantastic games, from the Dot Hack titles to Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm, and Ultimate Ninja Storm has been one of the best series of anime games that has been put out there. And so far, what I've seen of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, I think it's looked okay. Now, I am inherently excited for the game because I am a Dragon Ball fan, and I love the IP, and I imagine that's who this game is being catered towards. But also, you have to understand that there's been this emergence of new Dragon Ball fans that maybe only started watching with Dragon Ball Super, and they know the general story of Z. Well, this looks to be a legitimate way to get the entirety of the story of Dragon Ball Z, because it's going from the beginning of Z all the way to the end of the Buu arc as far as what other content is being included in the game. We don't know exactly. I think there's potential to do movie characters in there. I don't know if Broly is going to be a part of it. I don't know if other characters are going to be a part of it. We do know that there's going to be an originally designed character coming directly from Akira Toriyama. There's a lot of positive elements to Kakarot. Some of the gameplay has looked a little bit I could see it getting repetitive really quickly. However, I am still optimistic about it, and Dragon Ball Z Kakarot will be out January 17th. Next up, here is a sequel that I think has all the potential in the world, and that is Dying Light 2. Dying Light 2 is the follow-up to the open-world zombie apocalyptic parkour title that released all the way back in 2015 in Dying Light, and I thought that game was excellent, but Dying Light 2 looks to be a considerable improvement upon that game, as it's introducing a lot of different elements. The game itself begins 15 years after Dying Light, starring a brand new protagonist who is equipped with various parkour skills, so it retains that element. Starring a brand new protagonist who is equipped with various parkour skills, so it retains that element, and with the bigger world, I think that element is going to be even more in focus. And the game itself is set in the city, a massive urban open world that players can explore freely. The map itself is 4 times bigger than the original game, and I'm not going to say the original game had this gigantic open world, but it being 4 times bigger, okay, it's going to be a pretty sizable game, and itself is broken into 7 districts, and each has its own landmarks and locations. Dying Light 1 is a game that I always harken back to and say that it's one of the best games of the early PlayStation 4 titles that were released, and Dying Light 2 looks to be a significant improvement upon that. Techland did a great job with the first title, and I imagine the second one will be even better. It's out spring 2020. Next up, we have a brand new IP coming from Ubisoft Singapore, and that is Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones is a game that we originally thought we were going to get in 2019. However, it did feature a couple of delays, and that's probably for the best. In new IP like this, you want to deliver as high quality of a product as possible from the get-go, because obviously first impressions are really important. And typical Ubisoft MO has been to release a game that might not be the greatest thing off the bat and then improve it as it progresses. However, I think it would ultimately be better for everyone involved if the game is just high quality from the get-go. Skull and Bones itself is a tactical action game set in an open world environment and played in a third-person perspective. You take control of a customizable pirate ship, and you can choose to set sail in the Indian Ocean by yourself or set off on a single-player campaign, and you can gather up to 5 players to ally or engage in combat with in the disputed waters. I think a naval combat game like this is relatively original. Of course, the success of a game like Assassin's Creed 4 and its naval combat might have given them the idea of trying a game that the entire focus is this naval style of combat, and I think it can turn out to be something of quality. We'll see how it turns out, and it should be out sometime in 2020. Next up, we have a game that a lot of people are super skeptical on, but I personally am rather optimistic about it, and that is Yakuza 7, or Yakuza Like a Dragon. Now, if you guys know Yakuza, you know it's been one of the most consistent game franchises in all of gaming. All of the games have been really good, so what has caused people to be rather skeptical about Yakuza Like a Dragon? Well, it's the stark gameplay shift more than anything. Obviously, Yakuza played like a beat-em-up, however, Yakuza Like a Dragon is going to be a turn-based RPG, so a very, very big difference. However, I am all for giving the Yakuza team an opportunity to try something different. They've worked on the Yakuza games for so long and generally have created the same game. I can understand why that might be a little bit creatively draining and they want to work on something new, and Yakuza Like a Dragon featuring a brand new protagonist and main character now would be as good of a time as ever to try something different with the gameplay side of things, and it still should be a really good game. Again, outside of just the Yakuza games, the team themselves are very talented. We have to remember that, and as far as the gameplay so far that we've seen, it has looked rather good. The game is out January 16th in Japan, so we'll see how the game turns out, and then ultimately it will be released later in 2020 worldwide as well, so you have that to be looking forward to later in the year. Next up, we have another brand new IP coming from Ubisoft, and that is Gods and Monsters. Gods and Monsters was really one of the highlighted games from Ubisoft back at E3, and this one is coming from the creators of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It comes a storybook adventure about a forgotten hero on a quest to save the Greek gods, embark on a journey to the Isles of the Blessed, combat mythological creatures, and defeat Typhon, the deadliest monster in Greek mythology, in a face-off for the ages. Artistically, the game looks great. It has a more, charming art style rather than some of the realistic looks a lot of these other games are going for, but I am all for variety in presentation, and Gods and Monsters definitely has that. It's an open-world action-adventure title full of epic battles and quests. You can freely roam in a beautiful fantasy world and use extraordinary abilities against mythological monsters who aren't your only foes. Tricky trials, treacherous dungeons, and heroic feats await. Next up, another major Ubisoft title, this one a part of a pretty established franchise, and that is of course the latest Watch Dogs game and Watch Dogs Legion. Coming to you guys from Ubisoft Toronto, Watch Dogs Legion is the latest game in the Watch Dogs franchise. Watch Dogs is a franchise that I don't know if it's as big as Ubisoft had originally hoped for, given that the hype and the anticipation for Watch Dogs 1 was absolutely enormous. That game was a little bit of a disappointment. I thought they rebounded really well with Watch Dogs 2, and I thought that was a rather good game. Unfortunately, it didn't look like that game did as well commercially as they probably would have hoped, but now we have the third game in the franchise, Legion, and this game was scheduled to come out in March of 2020. Unfortunately, it saw a little bit of a delay, but the game itself will be in an open world. A fictionalized representation of London will be the backdrop, which will encompass notable landmarks, boroughs, and cultural styles of the city, so that's a great destination, I think, to take Watch Dogs in. And of course, Watch Dogs is going to have some very, very interesting gameplay mechanics, but I think if you were a fan of the stylization of the first two games, there's going to be a lot to like in Watch Dogs 2, and Watch Dogs Legion is looking to have a PS4 release sometime in 2020. Next up, we have a game that's been going a little bit under the radar, and that is the Eternal Cylinder, a brand new open world survival adventure game coming in 2020. The world of the Eternal Cylinder is populated with more than 30 memorable handcrafted alien creatures. Players must learn their unique behaviors and discover surprising ways to utilize the natural food chain to their advantage. Visually, the game's got a very unique look to it, and it's also featuring a litany of mutations. Players can unlock more than 50 plus unique mutations as they explore the world. These include a traversal option, such as the ability to fly and swim, as well as new offensive tools like the ability to spit fire and create loud noises. Players can stack mutations, creating an expansive, ever-evolving skill set. So a lot of replayability in the title, and this is one that is going a little bit under the radar. I'm going to try to talk a little bit more about it as we get closer to its release sometime in 2020, but it is scheduled for a PS4 release. And lastly, we have a free-to-play title that was alluded to in the title. The open-world adventure Genshin Impact comes to PS4 next year. Genshin Impact is an open-world title that is emphasizing freedom in all aspects of gameplay, and that is a top priority. The developers are considering ways to further enhance the feature set, such as outfit customization, player housing, and more details about the title will be coming in the future. But visually, it's got a look very similar to something like The Legend of Zelda, and it's got a lot of variety to its gameplay. As your journey in Genshin Impact gets further, you'll encounter new adversaries and stronger challenges. It's unwise to go alone. Genshin Impact offers a steep roster of over 30 characters with distinctive personalities, appearances, combat styles, and elemental skills, allowing you to customize your team with up to 4 members and swap characters as needed. Another one of those games that has a very unique visual style. I think it will be a little bit off-putting to some people, but I, again, am all for games looking a little bit different than one another, and Genshin Impact is definitely employing something a little bit different than every other game on the list. Again, it'll be out on the PS4 sometime in 2020. And that's gonna conclude this video. Again, the PlayStation 4 is looking to have a litany of high-quality open world games released in 2020, and this is just going off the games that have been announced thus far. I imagine that we're going to see the announcements of a plethora of other open world titles, and as we get updates on them, obviously I'll bring that to you guys. That's going to conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.